We're heading into Game 3 in the Pacific Championship Series as we take a look at some of our newer additions to the league. On one hand, we have Frank Esports, the FAK is pronounced Frank, I believe. And on the other side, we do have Deep Cross Gaming as well. The Rise Avenger Squad coming in from a lot of former J-Team members, as you have mentioned earlier on. Before we do a deep dive on this series, we of course have to thank our sponsors in CTBC Bank and Caliber, and of course our organizers in Riot Games, Carry Live, and Garena for making this all possible.
Yeah, and big thank you, of course, to the sponsors, but coming into this game, Deep Cross, they showed us a very exciting game number one from them in that they went for a barred mid. We'll see if that trend continues. And on the flip side, for Frank Esports, it's a lot of work to be done, right? You have some talent in Pretender and Kurt, but they haven't really stepped up to the plate. I think they're still trying to figure things out, how to perform on a bigger stage, just because they don't have that experience. So a lot of it has come down to Hollow, K2, Eminem, who are much more experienced, but it will be a tall task in trying to contend with some very experienced members on the flip side as well.
Yeah, I feel like these two teams give off very polar opposite vibes. On one end, Frank Esports is just the safest possible drafts. We're going to pick Gragas and Victor every game. On the other hand, Deep Cross Gaming is all about fun because their swaps were legendary, as we saw the Bard Smite coming in from Nesty, a Tryndamere mid, a Bard top, excuse me, as the Janna top is played, very similar to that style. It was super fun, it was explosive, there was a lot of roaming, and they all got a good big laugh at the very end of it against their former team members on J-Team. So already Deep Cross Gaming is my most exciting team to watch in this new split.
Yeah, and it looks like they have a very cerebral read on the meta. We'll see how they approach this game from draft. So especially when you know kind of what the picks are coming out from Frank Esports. We see the lineup here: Kurt, Hollow, Pretender, Eminem, K2. A lot of their success so far in the early game has come down to Hollow, K2, Eminem, these three veteran members of the team. And unfortunately for them in this particular game, there's a lot of strengths coming in from their side when it comes to these three roles, because Cristata, Woody, I would say, are the highlight, or especially Cristata. He's the new young gun coming into the league, and he feels like he's ready to be that doggo that we had last year.
Yeah, best CS numbers so far, has not died just yet. And we do see Deep Cross Gaming. That's true. Very small sample size. That is a good caveat, as they are going to go for their second bout here. We're going to start off right with a lot of AD carry bans. Cristata and Eminem, basically the main carries of both of these teams, and they're not going to get any fun. They have to play starting from the tier 2 selection of the AD carries, as we see the big three already out.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting approach to the draft, because now all of a sudden you have all of these elite AD carries, the hyper carries taken away. It'll be interesting to see what they think will be the next best thing. As we progress through the bans, we've got the Gwen removed and the Rise. So Gwen taken away. Love that, because I mean, besides PCS, every other region has kind of been perma-banning Zeri Gwen every single time on red side.
Yeah, that has sort of been the trend. Right now, Gwen is just, even if her laning phase doesn't go as well. She still is a late game powerhouse, an absolute monster. We are going to see Frank go for some of these roaming mid lane champions that Nesty has been so well known for, taking away the Twisted Fate. In the meantime, Deep Cross Gaming going for the Renekton, which in the PCS has mainly been a mid lane pick. So we'll see if that trend continues, as Frank is thinking about their AD carry options. Caitlyn and Jean been hovered through. Caitlyn took a big nerf on 12.3, but is still playable, and she's got a ton of kill combos to go with it.
Yeah, and that'll be the interesting thing to see what happens in this draft. Do they go for something like the Caitlyn Lux, which is the premier Caitlyn lane, but it's not exactly something that you would imagine K2 would be successful with. That he does like to play more of those roaming tank support pick off champions rather than that Lux, which is going to be a lot more skill shot and damage reliant to try and create your own plays. But they follow up with a Xin pick. I think Xin is still the best jungler because of the flexibility offered, but what he doesn't do well is do a lot of damage when it in the mid late game, unless if you're giga snowballed ahead and Ana gets his hands on the Diana, which does pretty much what a Xin doesn't do.
Yeah, that's a very interesting combo. Once again, Diana is flawless so far in the PCS, so Deep Cross Gaming holding on to some trends there. Also picking up another champion that was nerfed on 12.3 in the Senna. Was a very powerhouse AD carry pick, but might be seeing more of a fasting style on this patch. In the meantime, another attempt at the Ahri. Did see one earlier from Cha-Cha, but didn't really get to see much of the newfound power of this champion. What do you think was lacking maybe from the previous Ahri pick, and how do you want to see it function here?
There was a lot of attention applied onto Cha-Cha in his Ahri game, and having the flash burned early on really forced him to play very far back or play really reserved. He couldn't do those Ahri things that we might think of, and Hurricane Gaming never team fought. So not a whole lot of an interaction coming in, not a chance for the Ahri to shine. Hopefully we get to see that this time around from Pretender, as we are in the second ban phase. Tom Kench taken away, Jace taken away, and Jace, of course, one of those champions, while also does well into the Renekton, also does very well 1v0 situations if they wanted to move Renekton into the mid lane and go for yet another smite top laner.
I just want to say, as an old timer, I remember coaching back in season 3 where we would pick Caitlyn and Ahri and set up siege poke comps right in front of your tower. It was one of the most annoying things to deal with. If you get hit by one crowd control, you were dead because the chain was easy to land. And I have a feeling that both Jace and Gameplink would put the power level of Frank Esports through the roof. So Deep Cross Gaming are like, I think we see what you're trying to do there, and they're trying to kind of limit the options that Frank Esports has. So far, we've only seen Kurt go for tanky champions. The Ornn would be similar to the Gragas, but not Gragas himself. So at the end of the day, this is going to be the third Gragas game that Kurt has picked up here.
Gragas locked in yet again, which means that they can go for a smite top laner because the Gragas cannot punish that style of champion. Oh, let's go!
No. The Heimer?
Nesty, the big brain mid laner of the PCS, comes in with the literal big brain champion, Heimerdinger, straight from Arcane. For those who only watch the show and don't watch League of Legends, it's a Heimerdinger from Arcane. There we go. And it is a Bard locked in. You know, this could be Senna Heimer bot lane.
I think my brain is melting. I'm not even sure how you're piloting that, but hey, Deep Cross Gaming got Bard top smite to work in game 1, so maybe they can pull it off again. This is a very unique composition. Nightstar, you're gonna have to enlighten me here. What are these guys trying to do?
I'm not gonna dive into it okay, it is barred mid or barred top lane, I guess, because Nessie does have that smite on him. So this is going to be Heimer Senna bottom lane. I am so excited. This was one of those bot lanes that a couple of it was seen more in solo queue way back when Senna first came out, and they were trying to pair her down there because Heimer, very good laning champion, good with resources. Also, you can play around his turrets very well as the Senna because you have more targets to just queue through. So a lot of sustain, a lot of poke. We'll see how well it does into the Lux, as they did settle on that pick, because again, if you do get locked down, you're still going to get bursted out early on. There's just still a lot of damage coming in from the Caitlyn Lux.
Well, I guess we're going to see a new 18-0 in the league, playing double smite the entire way through. Deep Cross Gaming, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They're going to go for the creative strategies once more, and I don't think my head can manage this. This is absolutely mind-blowing what they're trying to attempt right here. It feels like there's so many parts of this composition. You have the Renekton, you have the Diana combo, and then you have this like super turbo push lane against Caitlyn Karma, which I'm really interested in seeing, because it feels almost impossible to outpush Caitlyn Karma. But as you've mentioned, that Heimerdinger and also that Senna lane seem to be extremely powerful at the same time as well.
It has good shove potential, and remember, because you have Bard, it's going to be 4v3 at worst in this bottom half of the map, so they're going to have a lot of protection. One of the issues when you play double range is like, well, what if you get caught out once? Because then it becomes incredibly punishing. If you lose flash, especially against a Xin, things will go south very, very quickly. But you know you're going to have an overload on this half of the map. I mean, if you're going to have Renekton mid as well. So essentially, it becomes a 5v4 at worst. So, like, this is a very difficult game to play coming in from FAK Esports, because of the fact they have played very, very standard. They don't go for any change-ups when it comes to lane setups, and their solo laners have been very stagnant in their map movements. So this is the worst matchup for them here.
It does seem like FAK Esports' game plan has been revolving around just Eminem getting to 3 items, going to late game. But as you mentioned, Deep Cross Gaming seem to have the perfect counter to that. If you're thinking about how to shut down an AD carry, you just constantly send 5 people into their lane, underneath their tower, and that's exactly what they did with the earlier Bard game as well. Just roaming Bard to mid early, allowing mid lane to then walk down into the bot lane tower and just get easy pickoffs over and over again. They did that against J-Team, and they're looking to do it against Frank once more. So, you know, thank you for the breakdown right there, Nightstar. I think you hit the nail on the head. This is exactly what we need to watch for when the roams are coming and when the dives are going to happen against Eminem and against his support here in K2 in lane.
Yeah, and this is the punishment for early picking tank champions right now in this meta, because not only can you get bullied by carry champions like a Graves, you also get bullied, just your team gets bullied by Smite. So it's really a catch-22 in these situations. However, I will say the adaptation coming in from Kurt is very interesting, because he's gone for the Predator. I expect to see more damage-oriented build, because he is essentially getting funneled up top side as he is 1v0. And I mean, if you get something like an Everfrost and just go full nuke, perhaps you have the extra damage to pick off these targets on DCG, because they are incredibly squishy still.
Yeah, he will have to roam alongside with Leaky or, Nesty in this instance. We will see the Bard roam come up a little bit later. Usually you wait around for the first cannon wave before you really start moving. So the shenanigans will happen, but they will happen at a bit of a later time. In the meantime, we do have Deep Cross Gaming with the early ward down onto Xin Zhao, so they will spot that Woody going in for some very early trades onto Eminem. Coming out slightly ahead here as he is the support in this situation and can heal up with sustain. So I actually do favor that trade for Deep Cross, and you can tell already they have the shoving power even against the likes of Caitlyn and Karma.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the strengths of Heimerdinger is that he shoves waves so easily, and if you want to counter that out, you're going to have to expend a lot of mana. So it's going to be a battle of mana in this bottom lane, but if you look at the itemization differential, you know, you have a Doran's Ring, which is going to supplement your mana pool, whereas on the flip side, you have a Longsword, which doesn't supplement your mana pool. So in the long run, it will just easily, steadily be won out by Cristata and Woody down here.
If you look at the setup from Eminem, he's very clearly resigning the push and going for sustain with the fleet footwork and the triple pot start. Now Holo trying to punish Leaky as a melee champion in the mid, does get his full combo down, but not the knockup. So Leaky,
is that rest?
It could be. If he takes down the Gator visor, you could probably see rest right underneath there. The same emote, the same plays, but it is a new guy.
I mean, he was on J-Team, so, you know, same vein. Maybe he picked it up.
He learned from the best.
Exactly. So, well done coming in from Leaky, reading the situation, knowing that he certainly could get ganked from that wave position. And now that Nesty is level 3, this is where Nesty never sees top lane ever again.
And the funny thing is, Kurt is actually here too, but first we have a
What a start!
into mid. Pretender is gonna die right underneath the tower. That was a magical binding coming out from Nesty there. Even though we didn't get the initial fart, Leaky doesn't have the flash anymore, but again another binding delays. Leaky will still go down, but we see Nesty's prowess on this Bard.
Yep, Nesty doing very well on the Bard so far, and I love the approach coming in from Kurt, just saying, hey, once Nesty makes that first roam, I'm going to make that first roam as well. I have the Predator to get to wherever he's going to try and gank, and I mean, now that his flash is down, I guess he's going to go back to farming, but now he does have the teleport to help with a defensive play, but Nesty setting up yet once more for Pretender.
Yeah, he does have the magical journey ready, and cosmic bindings have been
here
on point all the time. Let's see if Holo can impact this as he does use most of his abilities. Pretender is stuck underneath his own tower and does fall down to Hana. The last tick of damage going through. He does get one back, but that's an extra amount of assist gold going over to Deep Cross Gaming. We also have Leaky showing up on the top side for some emotional support. But that play will fizzle out in the end. Very fair trading overall, and I'm just so surprised to see that even after the teleport nerfs, it's still a 10v10 on the bottom side of the map at all times.
Yeah, surprisingly enough there, but this is still the power of teleport, right? In that while you can't make offensive teleports, you can still make defensive ones, and that's what happens with Kurt there. However, now he's expended both of his summoners. He's also forced to take the recall since he expended all of his mana pool. We'll see where they go from here, because it looks like he's trying to just give up top lane, as it's a 0v0 top lane and a about to be a 4v4 in the mid lane.
Predator is popped by Kurt. He's coming in, doesn't have the explosives cask. So Deep Cross Gaming are not too worried about this approach coming in from the Gragas. However, they're taking a lot of damage from the poke, and the Drake is up. Let's see if Frank can actually set this one up. They do have good vision, but the bot lane's not being pushed out. The mid lane doesn't have exactly wave priority. And unfortunately for them, they will end up ceding this territory. K2 in the meantime gets hit by another Cosmic Binding, but he will be able to use the Blast Cone to get away. Things are really heating up right here, and I feel like Frank contesting this one is so damn costly because of that bot lane shove.
Yeah, and they're just playing so well around the priority, right? You know that you're constantly getting priority in that bottom lane, which makes it so hard to play the map, but They are fighting for positioning nonetheless, and Pretender actually getting a very good trade.
Ooh, Leaky down to less than 200 HP, and we see Kurt trying to chase on. They saw Nesty earlier on. The charm lands onto Hana, but not enough damage there to actually finish off the kill. Both of these, if you look at Frank's team, it's very lacking in crowd control. We do have Cascada going up with the stun, flash stun onto Pretender. Pretender already used his ultimate, and he goes down for the third time this game. Does not having any Ahri luck whatsoever today.
Yeah, and once more, the Ahri not put in a position to succeed, doesn't get an honest 1v1 lane. As in the first time around, we saw a lot of support roaming, a lot of jungle roaming. This time around, it's support, jungle, top lane, the whole shebang.
Yeah, I really want to see when this Ahri pick is finally going to pop off in the PCS, but we might have to wait for a while for that to happen. DCG, in the meantime, picking up their objective. Very happy about everything that's been happening on the bot side. Though, interesting enough, they don't have any turret plates just yet. I thought with all the push that Heimerdinger might be able to get some of the extra gold off of Caitlyn, but so far hasn't happened. See Nesty just picking up some opportunistic farm, and honestly, this is where I feel like DCG get even stronger than before. We have the Diana online, we have the ultimate from Heimerdinger for the stuns, and even more burst damage coming out, and also the potential for the ultimate for Nesty as well. So this Herald fight could be very perilous for Frank. Let's see if they can find any abilities, especially onto Nesty, but he just gets out of the way. Predator popped, and it seems like Deep Cross Gaming without the Heimerdinger are just not going to go in onto this one. Coming in a little bit closer, taking down wards. Heimerdinger does not have the teleport, and indeed, Frank Esports with the full 5-member commit do secure the objective.
Yeah, and Frank Esports are actually playing super well at adapting to this very different strategy. They've instead brought out a roaming Gragas pick. He's sacrificed a lot of farm, but he's still doing somewhat okay when it comes to levels. But the big issue, of course, is now your Caitlyn is in that mid-game trough. Your Zindao didn't get rolling early on, so he's hit a bit of a trough himself. So it's just a matter of how well can you recover coming into mid-game to set yourself up for late-game success, because the Caitlyn will still do a lot of work. But now, Kurt, remember, diving Gragas not the easiest task.
But they do have 4 people on this dive as Hana gets taken back. 2 flashes used, and Kurt still lives. That's going to be a tower in the top side and a potential second Herald charge onto the inner tower, as we do have a PCS addition right here. Ooh, I like this one. Haven't seen this before. New addition to 2022 and improving our split. And Frank Esports not only have the first tower, the first breakdown, they also get the second charge. So, like you mentioned, going for that Gragas kill underneath tower has not been a recipe for success. As Kurt walks down underneath his own tower, takes a bunch of damage from Cascada, who, I do want to mention, has not died just yet in the PCS, so looking to keep that scoreline alive.
Yeah, so just explain the Rift Herald take much earlier on coming in from Frank Esports. The reason why DCG don't make that rotation is because Crostada didn't have the teleport, but not only that, even if he did, it's very difficult to play things as a Heimerdinger who needs turrets to show up, and that is a lot of damage.
Yeah, Nesty fumbles the dive just a little bit, but he's going to be absolutely okay afterwards. That was an unnecessary ult if I've ever seen one. Unnecessary in the way that, you know, he didn't really need to take that tower. But he still gets away with it, 1 kill. And now we see what Frank Esports have drafted this composition to do, which is setup and siege. They already found 2 turret plating in mid, and if they continue here, they should force some sort of response. As we take another look at the Wombo combo here, our resident Heimer has to walk us through this.
Yeah, so he misses the stun, which would have been just an easy 1v1 kill, but then Nesty, you know, he could have just he could have ulted the tower.
True, but that would have been a little bit further.
Right,
I feel like
he could have ulted the tower much earlier, is what I'm saying.
True. I think he got baited by his own cup of cocoa. It's like, he should have just walked upwards and everything would have been fine, but, you know, it's fine. They get the
he
job
still
done.
made it out. Yeah, exactly.
Yep, but Hana is going in onto Pretender. It doesn't even pop the ultimate, so that's not going to work out. In the meantime, Chris first death in the PCS. We didn't really get to see what happened right there, but he does trade it back onto the Caitlyn.
Revenge.
Hana still has the Moonfall, waiting for the chance to go in, but doesn't find a target.
Cressada gets his revenge from the grave as one of the turrets bail him out and finish off Eminem, and it will be a 1-for-2 trade. Still, you know, FAK Esports fighting back. I love this look from them, even though they did get approached with a very difficult draft to deal with. They are still finding answers, and they are only 1K behind here, which is quite surprising because usually the overload on bot side results in a very large gold lead for your bot side. I don't feel like that has shown up here.
Ooh, as we are taking a look at the replay, Eminem with some quick fingers, but unfortunately not able to get out of the damage coming from Woody, and the extra tick is what gets him down there. And you know, back to your point, that's definitely true, and you have to think about the gold lead also being from the fact that Kurt did not stay in lane farm. Predator Kurt just kept on roaming with the rest of the Rumble here, so it's even taking that into light, it's even more surprising that DCG are still holding on to this gold lead, as we do see another Drake setup coming in. It does seem like this could be a potential strategy to kind of hit FAK Esports before they get the Caitlyn online to that potential third item mark.
You're going to see Cressada try and get a bunch of damage down, probably use his ult rockets just to poke one of these targets down, and if they're able to do that, it becomes a pretty free Dragon, but Dragon is still a bit of ways away, but when you play these Smite mids, the main idea of the Smite mid is to overload bot side so you can rush early soul. That's the main goal of this composition. Funnel bot lane and then rush soul. Those are your win conditions. So they don't have exactly a hyper carry in that bottom lane. Heimer still does a lot of damage, but they have 2 early dragons, and that's key.
Yeah, and they can continue to play on this style, and overall it does feel like a Season 12 Siege composition against a Season 3 Siege composition, and we can see what 9 years of champion design really does in this matchup. A lot more power coming in from Deep Cross, as it feels like. Holo does sense something wrong about that Tri-Brush, does not venture forward. But if we look at the map, there's a lot more vision being placed by Deep Cross Gaming into the jungle of FAK than there is from FAK's side into even just the river. So in terms of the pushing, Deep Cross Gaming have gotten a massive advantage right here as we see the Temper Fate going down onto Pretender, onto K2, excuse me. Able
betrayed
to get out
by
of
the
that
Raptors. Or bailed out by the Raptors, depending on which team you are cheering for there, as K2 does get out by the skin of his teeth. But Nesty, I've been very, very impressed by this Bard. Bard's certainly one of those very fun picks to just kind of pick up, but it's very hard to master, right? Because so easily you can ult your own team, grief a dive, grief a Baron take or an objective take. But in this case, he's played it very well because, you know, he keeps getting these picks. He keeps landing the bindings, and it hasn't been too risky.
In comes
with his
Pretender, tries to find the charm, not gonna even need it. The damage is enough to just take down Chris Kata. That was Deep Cross Gaming, just 2-man in the middle of nowhere, just getting picked off. Rather easy pick here by FAK as well.
Yeah, and taking a second death there for Cressada, his perfect KDA, definitely fallen. However, still incredibly powerful on this champion, has the Leandry's completed, also building towards the hourglass. That's going to give him a lot of team fight pressure here because he's able to lay down his ultimate turret and then go golden. That will provide a lot of damage while he's not necessarily doing damage, but staying alive in these fights.
So we are only 50 seconds away from the next Drake, and I kind of want you to walk me through how these two teams who are so close in gold are going to try and set up for this one, because so far it feels like with the pushing power, Deep Cross Gaming has a bit more options, but how will Frank try to respond to this one?
So right now the lane states are really, really bad for Frank Esports to try and approach this dragon, right? Because they don't have a tower down in the bot lane or in this, or really in this mid lane here. It's going to be a siege, but if they're able to get a flank with this Gragas, that's going to be key because the backline is very immobile. Even with the extra durability of a arm guard, it's not gonna save him from a well-placed cast. So Kirk's positioning is going to be paramount.
We do have the Predator pop. He's trying to find an angle onto the enemy team, chases Nesty across his own jungle, but in the meantime, a lot of damage being done. There we go. Kirk goes in. They find Triskata once more. He still had a flash, but it goes down immediately. Leaky is the next one on the menu as Galforce used to pop in and try to find him, but he survives. And Hana going in, still not enough damage. They do find the Hextech Drake, which is going to be their third. That was wins on both sides for both of these teams.
Yeah, very clear team fight win coming in from Frank Esports. I love the execution, but DCG, while it was a loss for them in that fight and they are going to lose this mid lane tower, they have the main objective of that fight, which was to secure Dragon at all costs to set up for this next Dragon. And getting Dragon Soul on this composition is very, very strong. Of course, it's the static Shiv Soul, getting that extra damage, getting the extra slow, and slow is really, really good for a champion like Heimerdinger, who instantly dies. He tried to flash into the Nesty ultimate, which actually would have been big brain, but doesn't make it there, and Hana tries to turn around with his own engage and does a lot of damage. Unfortunately, because you don't have the Heimerdinger, that's the other half of your damage. And yeah, there was just not enough damage to follow up to capitalize on a beautiful flash engage from Hana.
Yeah, great play by the Diana, but at that point, Leaky and Kriskata were already out of the fight, so unfortunately for him, no follow-up. Deep Cross Gaming, though, they do maintain their pushing advantage here across the map as they're going to take another top lane and also a mid lane. So the game state, as we have mentioned, is still very much in favor of Deep Cross Gaming's overall game plan, you know, just shove waves and go for this Drake. But we do have a teleport from Kirk once more, trying to find a target, but he is coming in full vision, pings across the board, and Triskata this time, there should be no way that he dies to the Gragas.
And Triskata, he's been picked off quite a few times by this Gragas, and Gragas is a bit of a poor matchup for the Heimerdinger in general because of the ability to get displaced. And Frank Esports, I love the way this game has developed. DCG coming in with a very good game plan, very good draft, but Frank Esports able to adapt their draft even though it is a bit of a draft deficit. They've done what's been needed to in game to problem solve.
Now we have Kurt running in with the Predator plus the Turbo Can Tank. Kriskata is going to get knocked back once more. He does have the stopwatch this time around and will be able to retreat on the flank. It will be Kurt that goes down, and we have Eminem in a very bad position. He dies immediately afterwards. Stopwatch not really that worthwhile. Leaky cannot follow the chase, but they have an open Baron for the taking right now. Deep Cross Gaming is going to make the full transition.
Now they have a big numbers advantage. That's a big win for them. They can turn towards this Baron. We'll see if it does get contested. Pretender does have Flash Ignite. While he doesn't have the ultimate, could still delete a member.
Polo, he could go in if he lands.
It's low!
Does go in, but no, Criscata will secure in the end. Pretender is the next one to fall. Another 2 kills. They do find Criscata on the back end, but not really enough. The damage has been done. 4 Baron buffs secured by Deep Cross Gaming, who already had a pushing lead. Now that's going to be even harder to deal with.
DCG turning on the Jets towards the end here, and they also have that Dragon Soul coming up, and it looked like a good pick at the start, but Kurt, remember, he's been roaming a lot. He doesn't have a lot of these tank stats you would normally associate with a Gragas at this point in the game. So he gets blasted on the turn. This is why you get that Hourglass. You put that ult turret down, and they just have no outplay against that turret once you go golden.
And I just want to say sorry to Eminem. He actually did not pop any sort of stopwatch. It was the Tempered Fate coming in from Bard that did lock him in place there. And look at the damage charts. He was only able to contribute 1,000 damage. On the flip side, Criscata, even though he was the first one targeted, able to do triple that amount. And now they are playing for Hex Tech Soul. This could be very, very bad for Frank Esports if they allow this one to slip by. They do have potential flanking position with those gates. Hurt is spotted out by Nesty, but it doesn't look like Nesty actually is afraid of him at all. Just chases for a Leaky, finds the Ruthless Predator onto the stun, does go down. Kurt, without the flash, is just gonna fall, and that is a failed flank, and most likely the soul going over. Heal onto Woody to keep him alive, but that's just not enough damage from Pretender. DCG are gonna walk away with the Hextech Drake.
Yeah, and unfortunate for the side of Frank Esports. They weren't able to problem solve around this dragon. That's been their bane this game. While they have been able to match in some of these roam pressures, that's going to be the real big killer for this game if it does go into the hands of DCG. And Heimer with Hex Tech Soul is oppressive.
It definitely is. Can chase people down, slow them, and that was a very interesting play from Criscata just to get 1 tower. He burns his teleport, saving the minion. Now up to very similar tactics again, just pulling Frank Esports across the map again and again. Pretender stuck in his own base as DCG moves across the map like a plague swarm of grasshoppers, just devouring everything, taking away the entire jungle here. And I feel like Frank are going to be forced to engage sooner rather than later. They can't keep on bleeding out like this. The gold difference already up to 6,000 gold. If this goes away, it could balloon even further. You see them going in right now. The stun doesn't land, but in comes
Perfect
Kurt
teleport.
with
Perfect
the flank teleport. Can he find someone? Criscata knocked against a wall, but isn't knocked back. Polo can't find a target. Kurt goes down. Polo might be next as the slow lands onto him. Brought back with the moonfall. Gets tagged up with the stun again, but will survive. A very close call for Frank Esports. And DCG, again, they survive the engage.
Man, this has been a great turnaround, at least individually, from Frank Esports, as Kurt has been really looking for these plays actively. Unfortunately, though, he just doesn't have the stats to back it up. When he goes in, these casts have to be absolutely pinpoint. Otherwise, if he doesn't trade at least 1-for-1, he's instantly going to get bursted down because he only has Chem Tank. He doesn't have a whole lot of extra health or defensive stats to bail him out. But again, with Hextech Soul and Heimer turrets, that applies that soul, so it's incredibly difficult to approach these fights if you go front to back.
Now we see Nesty with even more kiting potential, going for the Shurelias. Hana gonna favor the 1v1 against Pretender solo laner. Moonfall goes down, and that is a clean solo kill from the jungler of DCG. 5v4 on the map currently, with Baron coming up in about a minute. Full vision control here. And in the meantime, Leaky also plays super safe, so wow, nothing really to fault here by Deep Cross Gaming. They have a super unique strategy, and they aren't getting punished whatsoever. It doesn't seem like Frank Esports, like you've said, can problem solve against this at all.
Yeah, they were able to do very well for the first 15, even 20 minutes of the game, but now it's really been a massive struggle here. And these sort of game states, you don't get to experience them quite often, especially, I would imagine, through scrims.
Oh, Eminem is caught once more. Tempered Fate goes down. The Cosmic Binding does slow, but doesn't stun, and he is able to get out.
Massive win. He gets out without using the flash, so having that tool still gives them, you know, that smallest of hopes to try and swing the game back into their favor. He also has 3 items completed, doesn't have the last Whisperer item quite yet, so it might be difficult to eat through some of these targets, like Nesty, who is building some armor, like Cristata, who has armor, and like Leaky, who has armor. So that has to be the next ticket for them to really swing the game,
are not going to wait for that last Whisperer item to come out. They're just going to start this Baron, start the fight, but Woody is caught out in a bad position. He goes down to the explosive cask knockback. DCG not finished though. They turn back around. Kurt goes down. There is a flash up onto the ref. Leaky finds another, and they are putting the finishing touches up on this game. Eminem, he's trying so hard, but his 3-item Caitlyn is very different from your standard 3-item Caitlyn. Flash forward from Cascada, finds another kill, and Eminem is all alone. He gets out of the Tempered Fate. My kill, Nesty. Body block from Cascada. And the Yordle helps out the Weird Chimney Man as they turn around and go for the Purple Worm. Let's watch that fight once again. Close calls on both sides. Frank could have gotten a little bit more out of it, but they only find the support.
Yeah, Kurt does a good job in finding the pick, but I mean, again, they don't have a lot of tools to fight after the explosive cast gets used. So he continues to try and chase because that's the only option they really have in this situation. They're so far behind. They want to try and get as much gold back as possible, but it just wasn't to be. So Eminem, he tries to salvage one more kill on the table for his squad, but too many bodies in front of that Bard is going to keep him alive.
That was pretty pitiful from the Caitlyn's point of view. That was 6 auto attacks and a Peacemaker, and she didn't manage to take off 400 HP from a Renekton.
Only 1900 damage. Like, it's just a state of the fact that he just doesn't have Last Whisper. He's gone for this sustain build to try and keep his HP topped off because there's so much poke. But unfortunately, it's really curbed his damage, and he is really the only big damage threat at this point in the game.
Yeah, so it really feels like all up to maybe Kurt and Pretender finding a very good combo, but Kurt is not trying to flank. He's going for...
It's gone.
What? That was very opportunistic. Now we have the Elder going down, the Execute pops. Double kill for the support in Woody here, and Leaky is just finishing off the rest of the team. Frank Esports, they had, again, another very safe draft against the creativity of Deep Cross Gaming, and the buck-wild nature of Deep Cross seems to have come out again. Leaky just trying to prevent K2 from basing. Meanwhile, the rest of the team is going to finish off this game in under 32 minutes here.
And Deep Cross, they are the most exciting team to watch in the PCS because of their different strategies. And for Frank Esports, I love the growth that came in this game, but not enough growth, not enough problem solving to get past this, the brains of the former J team.
Yeah, it seemed like Frank had the perfect, Deep Cross Gaming really had the perfect answer to what Frank wanted to do. You want to push? Well, I'm going to push even harder than you, and I'm going to bring an extra buddy in the Bard from the top side just to shut you down as well. Early game didn't go well. The siege never really happened. The Drake stacking gone on for DCG. And I really think Frank need to go back to the drawing board. So far, their strategies have basically been, we're going to blind pick our solo laners and just hope that Eminem can carry us late, which is, I don't think it's a winning strategy in Season 12.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's in charge of the drafts, but it feels like they're putting too much pressure on the players themselves to perform in game. They're not getting the tools necessary through the draft process to give themselves a chance. Whenever, again, like we've seen this Gragas pick, while it performs very, very well in weak side situations, if you just ignore the Gragas, that's when he really struggles. Or if you just put a carry top laner that can just scale. And so that's where we're seeing the issues lie with this very powerful tank, but still a tank nonetheless.
Ooh, and honestly, Season 12 is not a season for tanks here, as we see Frank again taking a loss here, while DCG improved to 2-0. So currently our standings title holders are going to be CFO and DCG. Two very exciting teams. We're going to be taking another look at the pick and ban phase right here. A very interesting way that DCG set up this draft with the bans on Aphelios and Jinx. It seems like everyone knows Eminem is the main carry from Frank, and Frank, didn't really answer with any surprises. They first picked the Caitlyn, but then they show their they just show their solo laners so early, which is not really to my liking here.
Yeah, I mean, really, the way to salvage this draft would have been to move the Gragas into the support and grab something else. Like, if they played Karma top lane and just, match Smite with Smite, maybe that changes the game a little bit, because then the Karma isn't going to benefit that much from giving or being in that support role over that Smite top laner. So you could just have her run around the map and just have a support Gragas, which it's still not a great look against double range. I would say you don't expect him to do a whole lot anyways.
Oof, yeah, that's kind of tough. I just feel like if you're going up against a Smite strategy, you do either have to have very good wave clear to kind of prevent the dives that you were talking about that are heading your way. I mean, that feels like a kind of a weird complaint, because they did draft kind of the best pushing bot lane technically in the meta. They just got outsmarted 200 IQ'd by Heimerdinger and Senna. But yeah, I think they needed a little bit more raw combat potential if kind of the pushing strategy was shut down. And this is what happened this game. I have to commend DCG in their draft once more. They're really thinking outside the box and picking up these solo queue strategies and making them into a coherent canvas to go up against teams that are maybe a little bit too standard in their approach.
Yeah, and it looks standard at the start, right? You have Senna, you have Diana, you have Renekton. All of these are very meta picks at the moment, especially once you have the big hyper carries taken off the board. Senna is kind of like floating right there, right below it. Yes, it did get nerfed, but you look at that opening, you're like, yeah, it was pretty expected. But then how they finished off the draft is really where the gameplay started. And yeah, the goal difference, it was very competitive, right? For 20 minutes of the game, Frank were doing nice moves across the map to answer some of that pressure, but in the end, roaming Gragas can only do so much, because you want him as a tank, but I mean, either he went tanky or he had one-shot potential, and because you're roaming around, you don't have enough gold to be the one-shot potential that he could have been. And Nessie is going to take the MVP. Of course it has to be at the Bard, because this is the only X factor through that draft, and that really catapulted the rest of the draft to where it was.
Oh, his bindings were so sweet. His catches onto Eminem, constantly forcing him on his toes. It was just absolutely a beauty to watch. And I think teams that face DCG now have to think about how they want to draft against this strategy. To be honest, I feel like a lot of them are just going to straight out ban Bard and just call it a day. But it's going to be super interesting to see by week 2, when it finally comes around, who will have the answer against this roaming Bard and these roaming Janus. we know that Riot is just going to take this strategy away. The balance team has said
Eventually,
that,
yes.
yeah, they don't want this. This is it's kind of very counterintuitive and probably not how the game is intended to be played, but it's effective, and let's enjoy the ride while it lasts.
Yeah, and I mean, they tried to kill off reverse lanes, lane swaps, the lane swap. But it did take a while to fully kill off that trend. And while they did get better in being able to kill off funnel much faster, I expect this still to be a relatively usable tactic for a while. So DCG, it's up to the opponents of DCG to figure things out here. And like people say, you could go ahead and ban away the Bard, ban away the Janna, but there's still so many other enchanters. It's really just that style of champion that works on low econ that works out because you give up econ to funnel more econ into your bottom lane. And that's really how the strategy works, in funneling into your bot and also your jungle.
Yeah, any enchanter with some sort of hard crowd control can do the trick right here. And we are going to be heading on to our last game of the day between PSG and Impunity. Don't go anywhere. The game's just about to come up.